We are all cut from the same cosmic cloth. At least that's a conclusion I've drawn from Jainism, and I think that statement is something that existentialists would agree with. We appear in a universe that has existed since time immemorial, and we are composed of the same substances that compose the stars, planets, and fellow living beings. We appear to have an incredible mobility to move and shape our world, yet we question if this will to power is really our own. Existentialism was born from a world war which resulted in a massive loss of life, and asks the same questions anyone would ask living through such incredible circumstances. The questioning of our freedom and the ultimate meaning of life itself is constantly asked and pursued to really no avail. The most fruitful responses are typically, "It is what it is," and "being alive is scary," which is the most agreeable thing one could say to such a daunting question. Jainism is one of the oldest religions in the world. In fact, there are many concepts in Buddhism and Hinduism that were influenced by Jainism, and the Buddha had many Jain scholars as teachers that would influence his teachings later in life. An important concept in Jainism is that all living beings have a soul, whether it is a human, a blade of grass, or a puddle. And when this body dies, our soul will be transferred to a different body depending on how much karma we have built up in that body. Though the soul is infinite and very powerful, it is hampered by what type of body we inhabit, whether it may be that of our current form, a human being, or of another like a cow or a frog, or even a dandelion. Though this human body is very versatile and most ideal body to be in, our soul is constrained by this body even more so if it's an animal or plant. The Jain practices of ahimsa, non-violence, apariga, non-possessiveness, and anekantavara, multi-sidedness. These practices are all focused on doing no harm to any other living being, not experiencing possessiveness, or owning as few things as possible, and viewing any given scenario from multiple angles to better understand said scenario. While the fundamental practice behind existentialism is examining our individual existence and asking why we are here and why we are or are not free, these ideas coalesce for me personally. Existentialism asks the same questions that have buzzed throughout my head for most of my life, while Jainism offers me practices to reach for an answer or set me on a path to get closer to some truth. One of the most important pieces of truth one could pull from Jainism is that all living beings are equal and to treat them all with respect and kindness, just as you would want to be eaten by a cow if you were a blade of grass. What existentialism, which is modern Western philosophy, generally lacks is a form of practice. Practices which may aid in our thinking and personal fulfillment. Nietzsche, for one, came up with the thought experiments of the eternal recurrence while hiking through the Alpine mountains, an idea which possessed him to run back home and begin writing. The gist of this thought is to imagine living our life over and over for infinity, experiencing all its ups and downs, with every minute detail being exactly the same, which, ideally, will make us realize that only we are in control of our lives, and only we can change the trajectory of it. This is some form of meditation, walking through nature without any distractions. Preksha practices are a form of meditation in this religion. Through these practices, we become more in tune with our existence by focusing inward and viewing our thoughts as an indifferent third party. By doing this, we gain a better perspective of ourselves and our place in the universe. Although in Jainism time is also perceived as cyclical, it is not exactly like Nietzsche's thought experiment of the eternal recurrence. Jainism teaches that we go through eras in which there are good times and bad times. In the top half are the good times and bottom half the bad times, each section lasting for a different amount of time, but note that a majority of the circle is dedicated to the good times, or somewhat good times. But currently we are living in bad times, here to be exact. Though this form of us will not be fortunate enough to see the beginning of the good times, and that we in our reincarnations are sentenced to live through another 10,000 years or so of bad times, all for it to repeat another 1,000 years. This brings to mind Albert Camus' myth of Sisyphus, and how he states that we are all Sisyphus, sentenced for all eternity to struggle, and just when we think it'll be all over, we have to do it all over again. Yet, in Jainism it offers some sort of goal, or exit. During the good times, one has the possibility of reaching some sort of exit from existence and attaining a sort of godhood. However, this is only the case if we manage to shed whatever karma we have built up throughout our many reincarnations by meditating and continuing to follow the Jain fundamentals through our incarnations. Even if this incarnation of us, or even the next one, won't be able to achieve godhood, it still gives us all a reason to be good to one another. A sort of carrot on the stick. But admittedly, this leaves us a very bittersweet hope.